Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. On behalf of OTC Markets, we are very pleased you have joined us for the Precious Metals and Critical Minerals Conference. Our last presentation of the day is from OceanaGold, Philippines. Please note you may submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings by clicking Book a Meeting in the top toolbar. At this point, I am very pleased to welcome Brian Martin, Chairman of the Board of Directors of OceanaGold Philippines, which trades on the OTCQX Best Market under the symbol OGPIF and on PSE under the symbol OGP. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here today. So I'll take you through the next 20 to 30 minutes through our corporate presentation, and then we'll open up for Q&A. Probably just start with that this slide is just an overview of the mine site itself and OceanaGold Philippines and our tagline, which is really delivering returns and growth. And I think we've been really successful in doing that since we IPO'd in May of 2024. I'll draw your attention to the next slide, which is the cautionary statements. We are traded on the PSE as well as the OTC markets. So, I would say most of you here today are probably familiar with the gold price. The gold price has done incredibly well this year, up nearly 40% year to date. And, there's a lot of good reasons for that. Several mega trends are at play, and they continue, and we believe they will continue for some time. First off, gold continues to be an effective insurance against geopolitical or economic risks. Over the last few years, we've seen, increasing conflicts in the Ukraine and the Middle East, and ongoing disruptions to global trade. Gold has also been historically inversely correlated to the US dollar, as it's viewed as an alternative store of wealth. So when headlines suggest that the US Secretary of the Treasury wants to weaken the US dollar to improve trade imbalances, this is good for gold. When we see increasing government debt levels and continued stalemates on Congress over the debt ceiling, this is also good for gold. When we see pressure mounting on the US Fed to keep interest rates low, this is also good for gold. Bringing together this all geopolitical risk and the de-dollarization trade, this has led to another mega trend, the shift in the central banks away from treasuries and into gold, which has significantly picked up and supported by gold demand in recent years. The final major theme I'll highlight is this new paradigm in the inflationary environment. Most central banks globally have acknowledged this, with Powell recently suggesting that the new inflation target will be higher than the 2% targeted in the past. Again, all of which is good for gold. So maybe I'll do a little bit more about OceanaGold Philippines. Our purpose here is mining gold for a better future. We want to be a company that people trust, want to work and partner with to supply and invest in to create value. And we've got 5 values: care, respect, integrity, performance, and teamwork, which are really ingrained in everything we do across our business. I'll speak a little bit about the company here. So we are listed on the Philippine Stock Exchange. 20% public float is traded publicly on the PSE, as well as we recently upgraded the OTCQX listing in the United States. And we do want to see obviously more trading volume in that U.S. market, so that's something we're working on in the future. The mine itself is located in the Philippines, the northern Philippines. It's a gold copper mine. It's 80% owned by a Canadian listed company called OceanaGold Corporation, and we were required, based on our government agreement with the government of the Philippines, to list that 20% interest on the Philippine Stock Exchange. So we completed that in May of 2024. I would say, we were reluctant sellers, given that the asset is a very high quality nature, generates a lot of free cash flow, and the business did not need capital at the time. But in order to comply with the government regulations, we listed the company, successfully raising 106 million US as part of that offering, with a broad investor base across Asia, Europe, and obviously in the Philippines. And we think, the stock has actually done quite well since the listing. And we continue to think, it's a great asset. So just in terms of a little bit about the mine this year, guidance this year, just under 100,000 ounces of gold production is the midpoint. We also produce about a third of the revenue from the mine comes from copper, with a very low all-in sustaining cost. So in the gold industry, we use all-in sustaining cost as a metric for basically our operating cost plus sustaining capital. At $1,150 to $1,250 this year, that's an incredible margin at today's $4,200 gold price environment. We have a mine life at the mine out to 2035, and we continue to think there's good exploration potential, which I'll talk a little bit about later, to extend that life into the future. So I spoke about some of these before, but 20% public float, so that's the publicly traded shares. 80% OceanaGold. We do have analyst coverage in the Philippines. I mentioned that the stock performed quite well. So we IPO'd it at 13 pesos a share. It's trading just under 30 pesos a share today. So, obviously the gold price has helped during that period, but we do think, operationally the mine has done well, generating still a lot of free cash flow. And we've been paying a very steady dividend, which we think is still very attractive to investors. So, our dividend policy is to pay out 90% of free cash flow, or at least 90% of free cash flow, in the form of dividends. And, since we IPO'd, we've paid out, well over $100 million in dividends to our shareholders. So we're very proud of that fact, and we'll continue to do that into the future. Just in terms of the market capitalization, so total market capitalization, just over $1 billion US, 65 billion pesos. You can see dividends over the trailing 12 months, 41 cents US, or 2 pesos and 44 cents. So, very, very healthy dividend, strong balance sheet, $71 million of cash. That's at the end of the third quarter, with no debt. So, the only way the shareholder gets, or the OceanaGold gets their money out of this is through dividends, which the same minority shareholders also get through dividends. I'll talk a little bit about the Philippines as a jurisdiction here. So this slide actually demonstrates the rankings from a third party called the Fraser Institute, which is used broadly across the gold industry to rank jurisdictions from an investment attractiveness standpoint. Pleasingly, the Philippines, in the Asia Pacific region, ranked second. Second amongst countries like Australia, above places like Western Australia in terms of an investment attractiveness score. And I would say, that's a testament to the government's support for mining in the Philippines. We definitely seen an inflow of foreign capital coming in now to look for opportunities in the Philippines. The Philippines is an incredibly mineral-rich country, and has a tremendous opportunity to continue developing, mineral deposits. And so, we think this ranking is very much a testament to some of the things you're seeing in country in support of the mining industry. I'll just talk here a little bit about the third quarter results. Really strong financial performance. Record revenue of $142 million during the quarter. And that's at an average realized gold price of $3,400. At 4,200 today, you can see that there's a significant potential for increase and maybe another record revenue quarter with higher gold prices. I mentioned the dividend. we pay out 90% of free cash flow as our dividend. So $32 million was the dividend declaration for the quarter. I think that works out to about call it 13-14% yield based on the share price today. If you annualize that over 4 quarters, so very, very still a very attractive return for investors today. Free cash flow for the quarter, 60 million, just under 60 million US, and as I mentioned, debt free with $71 million in cash at the end of the quarter. So I'd say some of the key messages around the quarter, just on track for full year guidance, 85 to 105,000 ounces. We did say with our quarterly results that we expected Q4 to be pretty similar to Q3 in terms of gold production. So in that 20 to 25,000 ounce range, with try to similar levels on the copper side as Q3 as well. All-in sustaining cost was $1,200 an ounce. Again, at $3,000 per ounce margin at today's gold price, which flows strictly to the bottom line and directly to the shareholder. We also completed some dewatering in the bottom of the mine. The mine was actually impacted last year, or late in 2024, by some rain events. So we're now back to basically full mining rates in the underground by the end of this year, which is great. So we do expect production to tick up a little bit next year, as we get the normal underground mining rates going by the end of the year. And then we also continued to invest in exploration. I'll talk a little bit about exploration on the next slide, but it's been a key focus for us, and the mine has been very successful in finding more gold and replacing what we mine every year. And we've got some very attractive regional targets, as well as some near mine targets within the ore body itself that are very exciting. And then I would say, lastly, we expect an updated technical report in the first half of next year. We've been talking about increasing the rate of movement of underground mining rates at the mine for the better part of a year now. And we want to be able to daylight that into a new tech report to come in the first half of next year. So we think that could be another key catalyst for the stock to demonstrate what the mine life looks like into the future, as the last tech report was issued as part of the IPO process in 2024. So I spoke a little bit about exploration here. That this is a very prospective district that we have where the mine is located. So if you look at this slide, the red area is what is called our FTAA. That's our financial and technical assistance agreement with the Philippines government. The yellow is basically inside our mine gate. It's called the PDMF. That's the area we have the ability to disturb and actually mine. There's some phenomenal targets here that we continue to drill and look to discover more gold from. I just highlight too, we've been successful in, finding gold at about $34 an ounce here. Again, at today's gold price, that's an incredible return of value for our shareholders. So, we will continue to invest in exploration to continue adding ounces here at that level of cost. I'll speak a little bit about a couple of the targets here. So Didipio, there's a star in the middle of the page. True Blue is about 800 meters just outside the mine gate. It's a small regional target that we have some drilling on this year. Could be a potential future ore source, but we need to do the drilling, prove it up, do the engineering work, et cetera, to be able to do it. But we do think there's some excitement there. DeFox is another near mine target that we're doing some drilling on this year. And then we do have, the lower parts of the mine. We don't have a slide here in our presentation, but I'd encourage you to go to our website and look at it. There's some slides that show some cross sections through the ore body. And we're really still in some of the upper areas of the ore body, with the ore body remaining open at depth. There's some good drill results deeper that suggest the mineralization can continue. But so we're back into the underground following some of the dewatering events I spoke about. We'll be mobilizing a drill rig this quarter down there and look to continue drilling off and look with the goal of increasing the reserves and resources in the lower part of the mine. I just maybe highlight here, some of the ESG commitments. So, we do have a AA rating from MSCI, which is arguably the highest rating you can get as a mining company. This site is a very small surface footprint. We have only basically 34% of the permitted area that we can disturb, that we actually disturb. You can see on this slide the old open pit. We have a large surface stockpile of material that you can see behind the open pit, which we feed through the mill today, along with our underground feed. And we do have a paste plant on site as well, which is helpful for one in terms of just reducing tailings capacity, but it's actually the first of its kind in the Philippines. The tailings dam is operated to ANCOLD standards, which is the Australian standard for large dams. And so, this mine is definitely operated to world-class standards. I'll just talk about some of the, the other ESG components that we have through the site. We do win a lot of awards in the Philippines based on our sustainable mining practices. And our goal here is mining gold for a better future, and we very much preach that across all of our business. So, we have water stewardship, AAA across all 4 of our sites, and tailings management triple has all 6 indicators. So, we've done really well, in terms of basically operating this mine to the highest of global standards. Last slide. Actually, no, there's 2 more slides. Just on the management team. So as I noted at the beginning, I'm the chairman of the board of directors. We've got a number of executives as well as people from the OceanaGold team that own 80% of the shares today, including our CFO, Marius, and our general counsel, Liang. And then we've got 3 independent directors, very deeply experienced Filipino directors who assist us in, and represent the minority shareholders. And so, we've got Greg Domingo, Tammy Lapagna, and Mia Hentagaya as independent directors. And, that they represent our minority shareholders. And so we've got a very strong and deeply experienced team. I'll just kind of highlight this, and then I'll probably speak a little bit to the outlook as well. So priorities for this year, safe and responsible mining. That's safety is the most important thing we do in our business every single day, and something we really strive to is having our people come home safe every day. So everything we do has to be done safely. We want to deliver on our guidance. We want to generate strong free cash flow, keep that balance sheet strong. Pay high dividends. And deliver returns for our shareholders. And that can be through dividends, but also through growing reserves and resources, as well as daylighting value through the updated technical report. So I'd say overall, I think the OceanaGold Philippines is in a great position here. We've got a very strong balance sheet. We're generating very strong free cash flow. We have no gold price hedges or prepays. We've got 100% exposure to the spot gold price. And we've got the mine operating back to normal mining rates starting next year from the underground. That was definitely impacted production this year, although we will still deliver on our guidance this year. So the mine's really set up for a bright future, and we look forward to continuing to share updates to the market in that regard. We also continue to drill and explore. I mentioned some of the near mine targets that we have. Those are exciting targets that we're going to continue to invest in. So, I expect us to continue to have a healthy exploration budget, into next year as well. And we'll continue to look for new mine targets. So maybe I'll just pause there, and then I see a number of questions in the Q&A, and I can try and address some of them. Yeah, so the first one is, are there any specific near mine or regional targets that you believe could change the scale of the operation, not just extend the life by a couple years? It's a good question. I would say, there's absolutely potential that could be the case. These type of, they're called alkalic porphyries, tend to occur in clusters. We found one with Didipio. Could there be another Didipio style ore body on the land package? Yes. Have we found it? Yes. Yet? No. Will we continue to drill and try and find it? Absolutely. Some of those near mine regional targets I spoke about, I think those are probably more sort of smaller ore sources that have potential ore sources, I should say, that have near mine potential that are quite close to existing infrastructure, but have some drill holes into it historically. And but is there potential to find another Didipio style ore body here? Absolutely, and that's our goal, is to try and find something like that. Maybe the next one is, given the FTA profit sharing and community development obligations, what kind of feedback are you receiving from the local governments and host communities about the current contribution levels? Yeah, that's another good question. If you look back in history, the mine was suspended from operations from mid 2019 through early 2021 because the previous license, the FTA that we operate under had expired, and that renewal took about 18 months to complete. At which point the contributions to the local communities were increased in terms of the community development fund. And so, I guess one thing that suspension, I think, demonstrated to all of the local communities, including the two local governors, is that everyone is better off when the mine operates. And we continue to contribute to those local communities. We continue to make sure that's done, responsibly in terms of those dollars going into, things like water systems and schools and roads and hospitals. And I'd say we're also not shy about, demonstrating that those come from OceanaGold and the mine itself. So, I'd say, people are generally happy with the contributions. We continue to, invest, and at today's gold prices, those contributions increase. I would say too, we operate under that 60-40 government split. And so, the additional government share that we provide to the government, we are the FTA 001, so we're the first of its kind. We're the first one now paying the government that additional government share. We made the first payment back in 2024. And, with the gold price, increasing this year, expected a much larger payment next year to the government as well as part of that. So it really shows that this FTAA structure works, which is, to have foreign investors provide financial and technical assistance to develop mineral assets in the Philippines, and to be given a good return on capital for doing so. Maybe it's the next one. Given the strong free cash flow generation and 20% public float, have there been approaches from strategic buyers or JV partners? And what's management's view on portfolio consolidation in the gold sector? Yeah, I think there's a couple things there. I'd say we're very happy shareholders at OceanaGold to own our 80%, and we love the asset. We think it's got a lot of great exploration potential. We were reluctant sellers, as I said earlier, of the 20% interest. But we're also, I think we see the benefits of having local shareholders and being listed on the Philippine Stock Exchange and being more visible in that regard. Have we received approaches from strategic buyers or JV partners? I'd say, not specifically. Would we entertain those type of discussions? Probably not at this point, given that we love the asset. But I guess I'll always say that everything's for sale in the mining industry at the right price. But we have no intention at this point to look to move that. A view around consolidation. I do think there'll be more consolidation in the gold sector, especially now that you've seen prices tick up and equity values tick up. You've seen a lot of the deals being done in sort of the mid-cap gold space, and I think you'll probably see more of that into 2026 and beyond. Okay, let's see here. The share price is up strongly year to date with a big move after the Q3 results. How do you manage investor expectations from here so the share price is supported by fundamentals and not just gold rally? Yeah, a good question. I think overall, we focus on what we can control on, which is safely and responsibly delivering on our guidance. Showing the market what we say we're going to do. We're happy with the share price performance, and do think it more accurately reflects the fundamentals of the business itself. The entire sector has seen a pretty sizable rise in equity valuations. But if you're a believer that, as I said earlier, around some of the fundamentals of the gold price, and that the gold price stays where it is, or goes higher, then these stocks, not being just OceanaGold Philippines, but the entire sector, is still pretty cheap. And a 13% a dividend yield is on a trailing 12-month basis is pretty good. And if you look forward and project these gold prices into the future, the returns continue to look very attractive. Maybe one more. The tech report is planned for the first half of 26. What are the key questions you expect the report to answer for investors about the mine life, underground potential, and production profile? So that tech report, first half of 2026, will really show the uplifted underground mining rates to 2.5 million tons per annum, which we've been talking about, I'd say, for the better part of probably 18 months. We were delayed in that tech report, I would say, just given some of the challenges we had with the water at the mine late last year and sort of, the remediation work we did through the first half of this year. But I think what we're hopeful is it sort of shows sort of the longer term flight path of the mine life. I think if you look at the existing tech report, you had the mine plan sort of falling off reasonably dramatically post 2028, 29. I think we're hopeful we'll see that higher production rate extend, into the early 2030s as part of that tech report, which we think would be, hopefully positively received in the market. So, stay tuned. That'll be coming out in the first half of 2026, with the goal of just sort of showing what that profile looks like. Why is there no trading on the exchange? Good question. I'll be honest. We were hopeful that we'd see some more trading on the exchange, post the OTCQX update. It may involve us having to bring on some sort of market maker to help us with that. We continue to do things like this and try to promote the story. We have seen trading liquidity increase significantly on the PSE since we IPO'd. I guess shareholders are reluctant to sell because they still like the story so much. But we're hopeful to continue to drive increased volume on the OTCQX. It's something that we're focused on, we're still relatively new to that exchange, and so are still learning as to how we sort of increase that volume going forward. But it's definitely a key focus area for us. And maybe I'll just do one more. While the Philippines improved to number 16 on the Fraser Institute ranking, the PMRC 2020 IRR only took effect in January 2025. How have the new regulations impacted your operational cost, permitting processes, or future capital needs? So we operate. So the PMRC 2020 IRR is really the regulations around disclosure, and those disclosure regulations, we filed our draft tech report in 2024 based on the draft PMRC 2020. So there really should be no change based on that tech report, based on the final PMRC 2020 outcomes. I'd say no real change to cost, permitting process, capital requirements, etc. The mine still continues to generate a ton of free cash flow and operate under the FTAA structure. The benefit of the FTAA structure is the fiscal split between government and OceanaGold Philippines is fixed at a 60-40 government take. If there is changes in the taxation or regulatory environment within the Philippines, it's captured within the government's 60% share. So it does ensure a reasonable return on capital and a defined fiscal agreement, which is beneficial for foreign investors going into both to invest their capital. I said one more last time, but I'll do one more because there's a good one coming in. Are we pursuing bolt-on acquisitions in the Philippines? That's definitely something that we're considering, I would say. The amount of targets are out there is probably limited. There's not a ton of sort of production ready targets, I would say. I'd say where we're more focused is on the earlier stage exploration aspects within the Philippines. We think the country is very mineral rich, but for the right opportunity, would we consider bolting on a sort of a smaller development project or an exploration stage asset? Absolutely. So we view the public listing in the Philippines as a competitive advantage for us. We've got a great brand in the Philippines. We've got great people there, and we do things the right way in that country. So we're very keeping our ears open and eyes open to look at new opportunities. And that if we feel like they create value for our shareholders, then absolutely we would pursue something. So I guess just maybe on closing, thank you everybody for the time. Really appreciate it. We've got a investor relations team that you can reach out to. The email address is ir@oceanagold.com, and the rest investor relations team is both based in Manila and in Vancouver, Canada. So we're very we're more than happy to take questions from any shareholders or prospective shareholders as well. So, and just a big thank you to the OTC markets for having me on today. Thank you.